So Siberia is definitely a special place for our understanding not only of climate change, but also of the planet more broadly. What do you think we could add to that Siberian genealogy of our knowledge?
Because of a very simple fact that Siberia has been always populated by not only Russian settlers, but also indigenous communities, the very concepts which came from Siberia, they have always been parts of so-called the co-production of knowledge. When the knowledge of indigenous groups, of local groups, was integrated into a bigger picture of the history of science or the history of knowledge in a broad sense. And in this sense, Siberia has so many wonderful examples about which we can talk. And we, in our module about knowledge, we try to summarize a few examples about Siberia. One of the brightest one is the example of the mammoth and the story of this kind of post-extinction story of or post-extinct story of this animal. The mammoth was and still is the kind of the central animal for the construction of paleontology as a discipline. First of all, I think many of our students will take a look at the pictures of the mammoth from Siberia. We have plenty of them, and they have always very cute names like Luba, Dima, Masha, and so on. So, but the stories of these animals, not only the process of their extinction, the way how they gone extinct, but the stories of how scholars kind of encountered with the corpse of mammoths or with some bits and pieces of the mammoth um, bodies, they are so important for understanding the production of knowledge. And one of them is, although the mammoth officially connect since a few thousand years ago, we know that many of animals coexisted with humans in Siberia, and our kind of ancestors they hunted mammoth in Siberia. So in this sense, the relations between the mammoth and the human beings in the region were very important for shaping indigenous and local economies and practices and human environment relations from an archaeological point of view. At the very same time, for local communities, for indigenous communities, because of the concentration of mammoth remains in Siberia, mammoth has never been fully extinct. So if you encounter every other day with the remains of this animal, especially in the territory of the northern Yakutia, the region in the a very big region, or the Sakha Republic in Yakut or Sakha language. So in that region, in the northern part of it, you can encounter mammoth remains almost every day. They are found while building houses or fishing or hunting. And in many recorded accounts, we have the stories about how local communities considered the images of this animal, and many of them considered mammoth as a living, as kind of extinct creature, but not an extinct one. So, and then with the history of science, the mammoth was incorporated into the production of knowledge already in academia and became an iconic animal for constructing paleontology as a science. So from this perspective, one of the most important disciplines for understanding the history of our planet, of the kind of the deep history of our planet, is rooted in Siberia and rooted in those encounters between indigenous groups and extinct animals as the mammoth. At the very same time, Siberia is important along with the line with the mammoth. We know about the importance of permafrost, and you, Michelle, touched so many aspects of this very big problem as climate change. And for understanding climate change, many climatologists they rely on the knowledge they are taken from Siberian field, and especially from the knowledge was produced through the analysis of the permafrost. But the whole vocabulary of permafrost studies is Yakut, is Saha. So we know so many terms which are rooted in indigenous language. So I mean, in this sense, in Saha, partly Evenki language and also Nenets language. So, and this entanglement between the indigenous conceptualizations of permafrost on the one hand, and the production of high specific and, very technical knowledge about the permafrost and some differences of this landscape, the permafrost landscape across the territory of the planet, in many ways is a product of Siberia, is a product of those encounters in the territory of Siberia. So, but I think you have a lot to extend the list of Siberian ideas further, right, Michelle? Please.
I do have a few personal anecdotes that relate to the topics that we cover in this module. So I grew up close to Lake Baikal, which is the deepest lake in the world. And just to give you a historical demographic perspective on that area, initially it was inhabited by the indigenous Buryat people, but when Siberia was actively explored and colonized in the 17th century, those people had to move to the west of the lake in order to save their lives or avoid the process of forcing religion into them. So now there are not that many Buryats living on the west side of the lake, but still quite a few remain, and this culture penetrates the lives of everyone, not just that community. So I remember when I was little and we would take trips to the Lake Baikal, one of the first things you would see as you're approaching the lake are poles covered in bright ribbons. And these poles are called hadags, and the ribbons are called serge. And they come from the Buryat shamanistic tradition because in shamanism, hadags, the poles, they represent the connection between the earth and the sky that they are pointing towards, and also the physical and spiritual worlds. Whereas the ribbons or serge, it's a gesture of respect and reverence to the spirits of the land. And so people, Buryats, Russians, any other visitors alike, they would often tie an additional ribbon themselves, say either a little prayer or make a wish while thanking the land and believing that the land around the lake will grant that wish to them. Another example of the connection and reverence to the land that I experienced firsthand is a trip to Arshan. It is an area not so far from my hometown. Arshan is actually a Turkic word which means healing spring or sacred water. So it is a beautiful area with multiple springs where people would often take a vacation during summer. It's a short bus ride. It's fairly inexpensive and it's really beautiful. And in shamanistic practices, Arshan is considered to be a sacred land because the waters in the springs are believed to have healing properties, not only for the physical body, but also for spirituality of people. And oftentimes you would see people making offerings to the springs in the form of food or money. And I also have an example of Buddhist symbolism that I and many other Siberians experience. And it is the staple steamed dumpling called buuza. Sometimes they're also called pozy, but those are slightly bigger than buuzi. So if you imagine a dumpling, it has kind of a flat bottom, and then it's pinched on top, and there is a little opening where you can see the meat stuffing in the middle. So booze traditionally is made with 33 folds, and it's not accidental because those 33 folds symbolize the 33 heavens in Buddhist cosmology. So again, it all comes from the Buryat culture from the region. And I know this is such a small thing that I didn't realize growing up. But now I see how through such small pieces, I grew to learn and be curious about larger concepts like Buddhism and shamanism.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing all those stories. And I can only add that I think our module in general is a good step towards kind of overcoming what some scholars call the settler colonial agnosia, when you can see something, but you cannot recognize it. For
Mhm.
example, many people in Siberia and in my family and many other families, they have never asked themselves about why they are surrounded by toponyms in Turkic languages, for example, as in the southern Siberia is very common. And all these things, when you're raising the question of how knowledge is working, how it's produced, how we appropriate them, how we use it. So then, with these questions, we may reinvent ourselves in a way, opening our hearts and our mind to new ways of living and new ways of being, and also appreciating the life of others who are our neighbors. But at some point, they became invisible, and with this, we are becoming like closer to one another and trying to build a more, friendly community.